Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And, it's really a big-time show that we have this week because we have one of our favorite guests to ever come on the program. He's on with us again, and he's a champion. And that's Scooby Wright of the champion, USFL champion, Birmingham Stallions, I think they are?
Stallions,
Shane?
yes.
Yeah.
I think they should be the Birmingham Shark Dogs after our guy Scooby, but that's okay.
Well, is it a shocker, Shane, that Scooby Wright went further in the USFL than Kevin Sumlin?
You know what? I hadn't thought about that. No, of course. I think you meant that as a rhetorical question, but no, it is absolutely not shocking. I would have been shocked if it was the other way around. It
was a rhetorical question. Yes, I would have been shocked as well. No offense to Kevin Sumlin, who never would come on this program and never will. But Scooby, I think, has been on 4 or 5 times, and he's going to come on again with us. This is, we talk about this every week. It's a common theme. We do a show in the summer. We're like, what are we going to talk about? Am I going to have enough questions for buy or sell? And then U of A decides to strike a home and home deal with Duke, and everything's on the table. And then we're still going through realignment and all that. So there's a lot to talk about in buy or sell, and it's presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Check them out, iceshaker.com, and you can get one of these awesome Wildcat Country ones like Shane and I have. And if you'd like $5 off, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and you can get that $5 off. These things are awesome, and I recommend them for everyone.
Do you know who loves his ice shaker? USFL champion Scooby Wright III.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, and I'm sure that will be brought up on the interview later.
Could be.
All right. Number one, Shane. Duke is the biggest possible non-conference opponent that could ever play at McHale Center. Buy or sell?
You are prone to hyperbole, Eric, but I am going to buy this one.
Okay.
Like we discussed, or like I suggested, I think there's a big 4 in college basketball. The Arizona is just outside of there. You have Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky are like the blue bloods of the blue bloods. Of those 4, Duke is the only program that everyone either loves or hates. They're the Dallas Cowboys of college basketball. Heck, the Dallas Cowboys are the Duke of the NFL. That's how much people love or hate them. So yes, a massive matchup, especially considering some of the history between the two teams. Arizona got the better of them in the NCAA tournament in 2011, which was of all of Sean Miller's victories, probably my favorite, or one of my favorites anyway. Definitely in the top 2 or 3. They beat him a couple years later at Madison Square Garden. I think that was the Aaron Gordon year, the Aaron Gordon team. They had a great double overtime game against them back in Bobby Hurley's day, I think 91.
Yeah.
91. So they're 5-4 against the Dukies overall. So yeah, it doesn't get any bigger than Duke. I mean, there are 3 teams that are, I would say, are on Duke's level in terms of prestige, but Duke invokes the most emotional response of any of them.
So it was really cool that Javier Morales, who's a veteran Tucson sports writer, posted a clip on Twitter from the 91 game. It was in overtime, and it was Keith Jackson, the legendary voice of college sports on ABC, with Dick Vitale, and they were singing the praises of one Matt Muehlbach. So next time we have him on, Mr. Triple Double, we have to get that clip, because it was Keith Jackson's like, it is remarkable. He has never lost a home game at McHale Center. Something like, I mean, it was so cool to hear. This was, and just to hear Vitale gush over Lute Olson in Arizona in this 1.5-minute clip. I mean, it was very, very cool. So we'll have to play that. But yeah, I would agree. I'm going to buy this one. There is no bigger opponent that is going to get people fired up, Arizona fans fired up, than Duke. Kansas, I saw them play. I think it was my freshman year. They played at McHale, and they beat Arizona. That was a good Arizona team, but it was a year after they went to the national championship game with Arenas and everything like that. This was Luke Walton, Jason Gardner's junior year. They played there. And so that was a good one. North Carolina, as you said, I mean, cool. I think Kentucky, just because of the national championship game, would be close.
Yeah.
For sure. The 97 title game.
They're Kentucky. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there was some big matchups at McHale, whether home and home or not. The Florida game, which almost 10 years old now, which is hard to believe. But
wow.
I was there for that one. The year before that, they lost to Florida in overtime in Florida. So they had a couple of great games there. Gonzaga, a lot of big non-conference opponents, but Duke is as big as it gets. So I will buy this one. Absolutely.
But even with Coach K not there anymore and John Shire taking over, is Duke still as big of a deal?
We'll have to see. Right. I think the next season is big to see if they're going to keep that, kind of like with Tommy Lloyd with Arizona. Tommy Lloyd, his first year at Arizona, even though they fizzled out in the NCAA tournament, just the fact that they were as good as they were was massive in terms of keeping that reputation. Though, even though Arizona hasn't been to the Final Four in over 2 decades, which is still kind of hard to believe, that perception that they're a top school, which I still think they are, they've had a lot of other accomplishments, it's still there. And so I think this next year or two is going to be big for Duke post Coach K. I think they'll be fine. There may be a bit of a drop off, but I think it's still going to be, I will bet that at least one of the 2 matchups will be a matchup of 2 top 10 teams.
Okay, well, you just stole my second question.
I know, Shane. I did.
That's terrible. Buy or sell. Arizona, Arizona, I don't care about Duke.
Okay.
Arizona will be a top 5
top
team
5
when either of these games are played in 2023 or 2024.
Sure, I'll buy that. It should be in one of the 2 years. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll buy.
And if Arizona hadn't had the season they had under Tommy Lloyd the first year, then I would maybe say, probably not, because we're thinking it would be a longer rebuild with the guy who had never been a head coach before and needed to build his resume. But I think he's already arrived, and we'll see how this next season goes. It's still not. It's interesting spot because it's still not like completely his team, because you still have some guys from the Sean Miller era there, but it's almost there.
Right.
And I think he's going to do well. So I think one out of those 2 years, the odds are they'll be in the top 5, one of those 2.
But when they play Duke, I think so too. I think Arizona is going to be elite. And I'm telling, I'm already feeling that national championship Final Four vibes, just vibes. I'm not calling anything in 2024 when they play in Glendale. Just pointing that out. Okay, let's switch topics. Very exciting about Arizona Duke. This is kind of a random one. I just have this number in my head. Let's get to realignment. So the Pac-10 is talking about, I've read rumors that they're talking about adding San Diego State and either Fresno State or SMU. But right now, it seems like they're waiting on ESPN to give them an offer, which, for what they're worth. I'm going to say $30 million would be what the offer is. Do you buy or sell, or do you buy that is good enough for Arizona to stay in the conference, or do you sell that number and say that they need more?
Well, your opinion. It might have to be good enough. It was my understanding that the current deal is $33 million a year for each Pac-12 school, and as opposed to the Big 12, which is $38 million. So that would be a step up from that perspective. So, $30 million would be a bit of a drop, especially considering inflation, right? Would they have much of a choice? How much leverage do they have right now, especially as a bottom of the conference program? I don't know. So it's not ideal. You'd certainly look for more than what you're making right now, obviously, but 30 million might have to be good enough. Then maybe that is the number.
Absolutely not. I'm selling that. Anything under I know it is my question. I'm selling that anything under 40 million, and I'm bolting tomorrow.
To go where? To do what? Do they have a choice?
I'm going to the Big 12. Oh, I think the Big 12 wants Arizona, and I think Arizona. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Big 12 would take Arizona tomorrow. Seriously. I know that there's a lot of hearsay, what you read on the message boards and the Twitter and everything like that. Arizona, to me, the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever it is a dead conference to me. There is no intrigue left in this conference without the Southern Cal schools. I said that last week. I'm going to beat that drum until Arizona leaves it. It would be a bad move, in my opinion, for the Wildcats to stay in this conference. There's no intrigue at all in basketball. None. There's no game that I'm going to buy tickets for. Oh, Arizona, Oregon. Oh, Arizona, San Diego State. Ooh.
Eric, I just, and I hardly an insider. We've been fortunate enough to talk to people who are, but I just don't know how much choice Arizona. It's not like, Arizona, if we're just talking, if men's basketball was the top sport in the country in terms of college athletics, they'd be in the driver's seat, but it's not. It's football. And the football team sucked for 3 years. And traditionally they haven't been a powerhouse. They've had their moments, but they haven't been a powerhouse. So I don't know how much leverage do they have right now. And so I think if I'm Arizona, I'm Dave Hickey, the Pac-10 is the rest of the Pac-12 teams, whatever you want to call them, are bonding or rallying the troops right now, circling the wagons, whatever cliche you want to use. Arizona is probably one of the biggest cheerleaders right now because I think they have one of the most uncertain futures of all the schools.
I just don't see, and we talked about this last week, so I don't want to regurgitate it.
That's fine.
From a football perspective, I just don't see the matchups that are getting the casual fan to want to buy tickets outside of ASU. USC and UCLA did that. To go see those teams in person, you're like, these are among the more prestigious teams. I mean, Oregon's about it. Nobody cares about Arizona, Washington in the game in 92 or whatever, 91, 92. Nobody cares about that.
But Eric, it doesn't matter who Arizona plays if they're not winning. That's the kind of football town that Tucson is. It's a men's basketball town, first and foremost. So if you win, fans will show up. If you don't, they won't. I remember when they played USC back in, gosh, it must have been 2016 when they had that awful year. It was a day game, so it was hot. So that was part of it. But it was like half full, that stadium that day. So it was USC. No one cared because the team stunk. So I think that winning counts more than, I mean, obviously the TV deal and all that, get surrounded by better teams is important, but just in terms of getting fans in the seats, you have to win, period. That's the only way it's going to happen, regardless of the opponent.
If I told you that the Big 12 potentially could bring teams with more opponents fans that would buy tickets to Arizona Stadium, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
For the university, probably a good thing in terms of revenue. Not the best look, but I mean, some of the big opponents that already happens. I remember when Iowa came to Arizona, the whole upper section was gold.
BYU's one where in the Big 12.
All the BYU alumni in the Phoenix area came down.
Yep.
No, I don't think it'd silly be a bad thing, and maybe it'd be a great way to rally Arizona fans, because I think when you get a lot of opposing fans in a stadium or arena or whatever the case is, the home fans tend to get a little louder because they want to protect their home turf. So
right,
not necessarily a bad thing.
Number 4 in buy or sell, the best move for Arizona right now, in your opinion, is patience when it comes to conference realignment.
I think it's their only move, so I'll go ahead and buy it. I think I don't think they can move unilaterally. Like if they wanted to branch off from the rest of the Pac-12 and say we're doing our own thing, I think they have to be a package deal with with ASU and the mountain schools, like you heard about originally. Maybe that's what was going to happen, them joining the Big 12, and then we learned from a guy, Corey Left, that was not really a major discussion, or at least not an in-person discussion. So yeah, I think patience is required, and I think we thought, I know you thought, and I thought this to a certain extent as well, Eric, that after we learned the UCLA and USC news, that you thought, okay, it's imminent. The West of the Pac-12 is going to go somewhere else. It's going to dissolve in a year or two. Well, our guy Corey noted, and I'm sure he's right about this, that the whole USC and UCLA thing, the moving to the Big Ten, that was in the works for months. And no one was blindsided by that within the conference. People who, the athletic directors and the presidents, they knew about it. So
right,
the idea that something was going to happen imminently after that announcement was made is kind of foolhardy. But certainly now that the announcement has been made, there's more interest and more discussions. But I think it's a lot to bring in. There's a lot of due diligence that has to be done in terms of finances. You have to wait on TV deals to expire or offers to be made. And it's going to take a little while, a little bit longer than I'm sure a lot of us thought.
I want to see, I'm going to sell this obviously. And once again, I'm just beating the same drum, but I want to see Arizona get out of this conference. I appreciate what the conference has been, but I really think the LA schools, were what mattered. I really do. I mean, that was getting the chance to host one of them and going to them in football. And then in basketball, the importance of having that Arizona UCLA matchup. There is nobody in basketball. And I know you said that it doesn't matter. Basketball is not the sport that everybody talks about. Like if Arizona were to stay in the Pac-10 right now, you look at that schedule and you're like, Arizona's not, this could hurt them. Because they would have to schedule a monster non-conference schedule every year.
Seem to be on their way to doing that.
Well, I mean, but now you don't have the benefit of UCLA and USC, who are generally upper echelon teams. Yeah. You replace them with SMU, Fresno State, and San Diego State, and you're like,
yeah, San Diego State's been good for on and off. But no, I get your point that certainly there aren't a lot of opportunities in the last few years. There haven't been a lot for quality wins within the Pac-12. In terms of building an NCAA tournament resume. So I get that. And some of their best wins last year were against USC and UCLA. They won 3 of those 4 matchups altogether, and that's what helped them get a 1 seed as much as anything. So I concede that point. But I don't know if I think they'll be able to sufficiently replace those games in the non-conference schedule going forward. If they need
to. Now let's do bonus question. Okay. So apparently I've read, once again, you shouldn't believe everything you read on Twitter, that Pac-12 After Dark is a valuable commodity to ESPN. I think it's garbage for the fans. It may be for the TV audience on the West Coast. but I think it's garbage for the fans. So buy or sell Pac-12 after dark in general.
I'll sell it in general. I think, unfortunately, it's a necessity for the Arizona schools early in the season because you have to play later if you're playing at home. You just have to, at least the first month and maybe part of the second month as well. I see why it's valuable for ESPN because, well, and the other networks, because what else are you going to watch at 7 or 8 p.m. West Coast time and 10, 11 p.m. East Coast time? You have some other options in the West, but the Pac-12 has traditionally been the most attractive option of the schools that are going to play that late. So from that perspective, yes, but Pac-12 after dark, no, I'd like to see less of it, especially at the programs where you don't have to worry about the heat so much in September and October. If there are more day games on the road for Arizona, I'd be all for that, even if you have to play at home for the first few games of the regular season. So I would like to see less Pac-12 after dark. I think we should ask Scooby about that. But yeah, I'll sell it in general. But as far as being a valuable commodity for ESPN, yeah, I could see why it is.
I think it's garbage. I think ESPN's full of it. Nobody on the east of the Mississippi River watches it. And I'm curious to hear Scooby's thoughts on it as you referenced, Shane. I just think, for me, when you look at, and I know this is kind of, it's on Fox 1, but the Mississippi State game on September 10th, Arizona's first game, that is the latest football game of the day at an 8 o'clock start, an 11 o'clock Eastern start. Nobody outside of the state of Mississippi that is east of the Mississippi River is going to watch that game. Nobody.
To me, there's a big difference. And I do agree with you because I think there's a big difference between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. 7 p.m. to me is still within tolerable levels. 8 p.m., where you don't get to halftime until after midnight on the East Coast, is ridiculous. So I agree with. I understand why it's done, but I would love to see the 8 p.m. kickoffs go. I could take 7 p.m. for a while, the early part of the season, but 8 p.m. is awful.
Okay. Bonus question number 2. You don't know what's coming with this one, so I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Fun.
Let me preface it with this. Arizona's first 5 games, they play at San Diego State, home against Mississippi State, home against North Dakota State, at Cal, and home Colorado. If everything went great, Shane, Arizona could probably win 4 of those games. It's not very difficult, right? I mean, everything clicked. Jaden DeLora plays at almost an all Pac-12 level. Jacob Cowing and T-Mac are incredible. The defense is better than expected. Arizona could win a lot of those games. Listen to this next stretch that Arizona faces. I hadn't looked at this until this week, and I was shocked. October 8th, home against Oregon. October 15th, at Washington. October 29th, off of bye, and I believe they are as well, homecoming against USC at home. To start November, at Utah and at UCLA. That is 5 games against arguably the top 5 teams in the conference. Buy or sell, Arizona will win one of those, at least one of those games. Or are they going 0-5?
Boy, that's a great question. I hate it because it's a good one because I have to think on the fly here. Yes. I don't like thinking on the fly. I like being prepared. You know it.
I do that. I do know that. Right. Yes.
I'll buy that they'll find a way to win one of them. Sure.
Where's the win?
I don't necessarily want to pick Oregon or Washington, but both of them do have new head coaches, so there's a possibility there. I don't think Utah is very likely. USC, they're going to do great with Lincoln Riley, but are they unbeatable in the first year? No. So even if they have like a 3 out of 4 chance to lose all of those games, odds are they might find a way to win one of them. And again, like John Canzano told us last week, and that was a great interview, by the way, go listen to it. A lot of good information from him. Arizona they weren't that far off in certain games last year.
Right.
They weren't good. They were not a good football team, but they weren't quite as bad as their record showed. And they were in a lot more games than they had any right to be. So you solve some of those problems. You find ways to score when you're at the 1-yard line, score a touchdown instead of a field goal or throw a pick or a fumble. You knock that crap off. You get rid of some of the silly turnovers. You get a little, they should be able to do at least everything a little bit better. And if they're able to do that, I think they could steal one of those 5 games.
So I was looking at the line, and then we'll get to Scooby here. I was looking at the line in the San Diego State game. We talked about it. It keeps going down, and it's a 5-point spread. I'm not ruling out an Arizona win there. And I'm just going to give you some crazy logic. So let's say San Diego State, Arizona could pull the upset. San Diego State's not nearly as good as last year, as they've been in previous years. They don't, their offense, who knows what to expect with Braxton Burmeister. Okay, so Arizona could steal that one. They get Mississippi State at home in the heat at 8:00 at night, which is, I think, 10:00 their time. So there's an adjustment there. Mississippi State, Mike Leach, good team, but you never know. You get North Dakota State, a team where, let's be honest, you have better athletes than they do because you're an FBS team, and I know they're the
that might not have been true last year, but this year I agree with you.
This year, right? And then you get at Cal, who I don't think is that great, and then you get Colorado, who's arguably the worst team in the Pac-12. Now, you can make an argument that 4-1. I'm not going to go 5-0, but a 4-1 is not. I mean, sure. 3-2 is definitely in play.
Absolutely. No, would I pick that to happen? Hell no. But yes, absolutely. Which is interesting because their over/under for the season for wins is 2.5. So they get their best chance to get that maybe in the first 5 games of the season. So yeah, if everything goes well, absolutely they could go 4-1. I think 1-4 is more likely than 4-1. But is there a path to getting there if everything comes together? Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to say Arizona's going to win at least 2 of those games. Okay. And we'll obviously break it down as the games get closer. The last 2 games on the schedule that I didn't mention, home against Washington State late in November, home against ASU. I believe even coming off those rough games, Arizona could be favored or close in both games from an odds maker's perspective. You never know. I don't want to throw out the bowl game possibility, but I just looking at that schedule, if Arizona can win one of those 5 games in the middle, it might not be as far-fetched as we may have thought. I'm just going to say that.
Sure.
Let's talk to our buddy Scooby Wright. He always has a lot to say, but now he's a champion. So let's hear from the Shark Dog himself, Scooby Wright, here on Wildcat Country. You know, I almost wanted to let Shane do the intro for this one because he knows how to describe our next guest, who is a frequent guest on this program. But I guess the one way to describe him right now is champion because, you know, after being a star in college and playing in 2 other spring football leagues as well as the NFL, now he gets his chance to be the star that we all know he is. And he won a championship with Birmingham of the USFL. Scooby Wright joining us here in Wildcat Country. Scooby, glad to have you back. Congratulations. I'm going to get right to it. I think the question that all of us are thinking, the end of the game, the championship game, you guys are up by a few points. And then the quarterback, Costello, who was in because the other guy from NAU broke his leg, throws one right to you. You're running to the end zone. What's going through your head?
Score.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, well, seriously though, like you had to be so excited in that moment. It had to be one of the great plays in the history of your football career.
Yeah, no, the coolest part was I was mic'd up for the game. So like, it's actually on my Instagram that like they're following the play. And I was like, hey, like, let's score. Like, let's go, bro. Like, let's go, dog. Like, we're going to catch one. We're going to score. And then the very next play, the quarterback threw me one and I scored. So it was awesome. I mean, it was really cool just to do that, help our team out, put us in a good position.
So where would you rank that play among? Now you had some incredible plays at U of A, the interception, the tipped one against Mariota, the sack against Mariota, the play against ASU, the fumble that Shane likes to refer to every time we have you on. And then I would say this one of the 4 that come to my mind. Are those was this the number 1 play of your career, would you say?
Yeah, probably this or the Oregon strip sack. Yeah, but this one was probably more meaningful because it was like spring football league. Didn't know if I was going to play football again. Like, it was like just being a firefighter, doing martial arts, and then freaking turned around and played football again. So it was cool to experience that and just had a lot more meaning, a lot more appreciative of it.
Scooby, I know you talked about that tipped interception that Shaq Richardson threw to you, that Oregon game in 2013, and you were given a hard time, or you gave yourself a hard time for not scoring on that play. Did this feel like a little bit of maybe redemption for you? Did they be able to score on that interception?
Yeah, no, it definitely was because, if that one guy didn't trip me, I would have scored, but I scored this time, so it's okay.
And in the championship game, no less. I got to ask you, Scooby, the origin of Shark Dog. How did that all come together?
So I was swimming in the pool in Arizona with my 120-pound Mastiff Pit, and he was swimming around, and he jumped up out of the water he was like a breaching shark, and yeah, called him Shark Dog.
And that eventually evolved into Shark Dog DAWG. And then
Yeah.
is there apparel that goes along with it? Can we buy any?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You just get.
Oh, that's sick, Shane. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I'm in the process of getting it trademarked. So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Chris ever decides to stop with the ice shaker, so we've got our next sponsor. By the way, I think you have to credit part of your victory to the hydration the ice shaker, your Wildcat Country ice shaker bottle provided you. Correct?
Oh yeah. No, the Gronk products are treating me well.
So, all right, Scooby, you've done this league. It's now your third spring football league. What's next? I mean, we talked to you like a year ago, and you mentioned MMA, firefighter. Next thing we know, your cleats are in the Hall of Fame, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for being a star in the USFL. What's next?
Damn, I have no idea. Hopefully, I get another opportunity in the NFL. That's the main goal right now. Focus on get healthy, train at Exos, be here probably for like the next month. So out here in Phoenix, so I can do that. I'll be out here, and then yeah, who knows? That is out. Probably go back, go be a firefighter. I don't know. The one thing that I did realize about this whole thing about coming back and playing football again is how much, like, I was talking to my grandpa. We were sitting at the bar after my championship game, and he was like, "Scooby," he goes, "Why aren't you going to coach?" You're literally going to go be a firefighter, do that. And I was like, well, the only reason why I was going to go be not the only reason, but one of the main reasons why, because I love the schedule of it. It allowed me to do other things and do things I love. But firefighting would have been a great career for me. I think that's a super cool career and great help in the community. And he was just telling me, he goes, you have a PhD and master's in football. He goes, you have to share that stuff with people. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And he was like, we were talking about coaching and stuff, and I could see myself doing that just because I love the game so much.
Well, I think you'd be great. And I don't think there's a shortage of coaches, including Jed Fish and Rich Rodriguez at Jacksonville State, who would bring you on immediately, as well as probably others. What's the NFL update now? Have you gotten any calls? Like, what can you tell us about that?
My agent, he's got some good feedback from a handful of teams, but some were whatever, but it's only takes one. So hopefully this handful of teams reach out and it'll be good.
So Scooby, I mean, going from, you're a star at the collegiate level, win a bunch of national awards, you go to the NFL, doesn't work out, I'm sure, as well as you hoped. And then you go to the AAF and it folds, and you go to the XFL and it folds. And you're probably thinking, I think you even said this, you're never going to play football again. And not only do you get national attention, you go on these national podcasts, small compared to ours, but still not bad. And Pat McAfee's giving you shout outs. You get all this notoriety for the cigar you got in your mouth as you go to the press conference, all this stuff. Is it kind of surreal for you to think that, after all these years that this is all not happening to you because you made it happen, but this opportunity has presented itself like this?
Yeah, no, I mean, life's a trip, man. It's I was telling one of my friends, like, life's a trip. Make sure you bring the ruckus. But no, I mean, I don't know. I think one of the main reasons why I had the year I did have and had as much fun as I did have was because I just appreciated it so much more, and it showed how much I was able to show my personality a little more, have fun, and not be so stressed out about being cut or this and that, or I don't know. I was like, it was just had a lot more perspective, and I just had a lot more fun because it is, at the end of the day, you're playing a child's game and getting paid pretty good money for what it is. So it's not bad.
I'm going to pivot here to a completely different topic, but a bit different. I'm sure UCLA and USC are getting out of the Pac-12, bolting for the Big Ten. Who knows where Arizona is going to end up? I guess the 10 remaining Pac-12 teams are sticking together for now. Your thoughts on that, and what kind of a rivalry would you say Arizona has with those UCLA and USC schools that might be missed?
Yeah, I was in my career, I was defeated by the LA schools, so that was always a sour taste in my mouth. But I don't know. Is what it is. I was kind of, when they were doing the Pac-12, or was it the Big 12, when they were showing like the diagrams and stuff of who was going to be where, and it was showing like Arizona and those schools. I was like, damn, that would be a pretty electrifying conference. I mean, they'd throw the ball a lot, high scoring games and this and that. I mean, but I don't think that Pac-12, the Big Ten, is going to go anywhere. But it's crazy that the USC and UCLA are bouncing because it just doesn't make sense. But I'm very interested to see what we have going on because I have the Pac-12 Alumni Council meeting end of this month down at Pac-12 Media Day. Are you going to be down there for that?
Now you're going to fill us in, though.
No, I'm talking about for Pac-12 Media Day.
Oh, no, not Media Day, but no, well, Eric and I both got full-time jobs away from this, unfortunately. We're going to do this very part-time now. Okay. But the Alumni Council, that'll be, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Yeah, I know. More so just to keep the alumni involved and stuff. I don't think they give much feedback to us, or some guys say a lot of stuff, but some guys don't. I'm probably the youngest dude in there, probably by like 15 years. So
this is going to sound crazy, but I hate the concept of Pac-12 after dark. It's just bad for the fans.
So did Rich Rod.
Yeah.
What do you think as a player?
Players trying to get notoriety. It's bad. The players trying to get an impact with national media. Why do you think USC and UCLA are moving? Because they don't want to be in Pac-12 after dark. They want to be in national headline TV. They want to be in those 12 o'clock games against, I don't know, Ohio State when you turn on the TV, sit on the couch. Nobody wants to stay up till 8 o'clock. I mean, I think not to toot my own horn, but I truly believe if Arizona, we didn't play Pac-12 after dark so many times, I probably would have been invited to Heisman. Just because
really,
I probably would have had more eyes on me and stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Now you look at that Oregon game where you guys beat Mariota. That was a Thursday. So, okay, I know it was a late game, but it was a Thursday night game. So I get that. That's fine. These Saturday night games, I mean, you look at Arizona's first two home games of the year, it's 8 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Like, that's not good for fans. It's great if you're sitting on your couch and you're on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, you're long asleep.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a fly on the wall at the bar, unless you have the game on the wall and the background noise at the bar, but you're not really paying attention. I mean, that's really the only time that's really on. I mean, nobody's really sitting down on the East Coast from pretty much Texas over, really sitting down and watching football.
So when you guys would have the schedules come out, like, when they would announce like 10 days in advance, when they would tell you you'd have a late game, what was the reaction in the room? Was anybody like, hell yeah? Or was it like, oh my God, again?
I mean, to be honest, I was too young to even think about it. I mean, now looking back, I mean, I hate night games. Like anything past like 5 o'clock, it's like, man, really? Like, come on now, we don't have to do that. Because then it's just a whole other thing. It's the whole ordeal. You just sit around, wait all day. But like my favorite kickoff is like a 5 o'clock kickoff, a 3 o'clock kickoff. Like those are my favorite. 6 o'clock kickoff, but like 7 to 8:30. I remember one time we had an 8:30 kickoff one time, and I was like, okay, you got to get this ammonia salts out. Let's go, dog. Like type stuff.
Scooby, thinking back to your time in Tucson, because, Arizona, the support for Arizona football in terms of attendance is at the lowest I can remember, probably Eric can remember, and understandably so. The team has won one game in the last 3 years. But in your time there, just especially as that 2014 season began to build and you got national attention, could you sense around the city and around the campus that fans were really buying in and sold on Arizona football and really becoming more emotionally involved with the program?
I can tell around the city, and not so much as at the school itself, just because we were still a quote basketball school.
Yeah,
we were still trying to earn our respect, and we were right on the brink of it. But then that 2015 season kind of fell apart, and then that's fine. But no, it definitely was. I don't know. I feel like when Tucson's winning, but when Arizona football is winning, the city and the schools behind it. But it's just too up and down. People just can't. And it's been down for too long. So it's been got to go on that up soon.
Only direction to go is up. Last question for you, Scooby, and we appreciate you joining us, especially on short notice this week. You're in Phoenix right now. Any chance you're going to get down to Tucson for a game or two this year?
Well, hopefully I'm busy doing stuff, but yeah, I probably will. I'll try to get down for one for sure.
Well, we hope to see you in the NFL. So we kind of hope you don't get down for one. But fair. If you aren't, I'm just saying. My last question, and as Shane said, thanks always for coming on with us. After you won the USFL title, who did you hear from a U of A perspective? Did you hear from Coach Fish? Did you hear from Coach Rod? Any of your former teammates that stand out?
Mm, yeah, Jared Tevis, he texted me something funny. He goes, finally got one, didn't get caught this time. That was a pretty funny one. Rich Rod texted me. Yeah, no, there's a lot of people. A lot of people. Coach Allen, our strength coach, I talk to him all the time. Yeah.
Well, you are one of the legends that have come out of our football program, one of the greatest players to ever put on a U of A uniform. Your name's in the stadium for a reason, and Shane and I always enjoy having you on, and hopefully we'll have you on at some point during the fall. You can, if you're not playing ball, just to talk football and everything like that again.
Well, even if you are,
but to talk U of A football, because then you'd have more chance to watch him. But nonetheless, great to have you on. Good to talk to you as always.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Always good to talk to our friend Scooby. Shane, just because I want to rub this narrative in, Scooby, not a fan of Pac-12 After Dark.
No, like I said, I'm not either. I understand the benefits of it, and Rich Rod wasn't either. I remember there was one press conference where he's like, "Here we go again, Pac-12 After Dark." So, no, I get it, and interesting comments about the university and fans getting behind the program, and being a men's basketball school first, and then about the exposure or lack thereof that the Pac-12 teams get with those games. Take it from Scooby himself, and he said that if he was not in the Pac-12, he thought he would have been invited to the Heisman Trophy presentation. And you know what? He's probably right, because Arizona they had the record to match it that year. So they don't invite a lot of defensive players, but the guy won so many national awards that it's not inconceivable to think that if he played for an Ohio State or a Florida or one of those schools, he might have been invited. So and Scooby's he's a humble guy. So when he says something like that, yeah. I know he believes in himself, but he's not an arrogant guy. If he says something like that, you turns your head a little bit, and I think he makes a very good point.
The incredible thing, and I don't want to make a long tangent out of this. In training camp, figure like 6 or more linebackers get invited to training camp for every team. That's over 200 linebackers. You're telling me that there are 200 guys in this country that are better than Scooby Wright at that position? I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe he deserves a shot. Obviously, he's been a good friend of the program, and I appreciate that. But I think if you're listening to this and remember Scooby Wright as a college player and saw what he did in the USFL, he's a guy that deserves another shot. And I'm not saying he's got to make a team's roster coming out of the preseason, but he deserves a shot.
I will make a bold prediction that he will be invited to a training camp.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. Speaking of bold predictions, now we brought this up at the start of the show. Every week something happens. There's always a headline. There's the conference realignment. There's Arizona Duke. Where does our headline for next week's Wildcat Country come from, Shane? Is it realignment related, or is it scheduling, or is it a transfer?
Or
commitment?
Or commitment? Yeah. There's was it Kwame?
That's early August. So
early August.
So we're going to record. We're going to record. Yeah, before that. That'll be in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but Arizona is one of his last.
He's going to Arizona, I think.
You think he's going to Arizona? Okay,
yeah,
we'll talk about that then. The next week, something always happens, especially like the hours after we post this recording, right? So something's bound to happen. Probably not a coach hiring or firing. That seems pretty set. Well, you know what? I'll predict that we're going to get a new baseball transfer commit. We
got one from Nevada, a starting pitcher who shut out Arizona already. I don't remember his name. So
I bet we'll get another one by next week. How's that?
Yeah. Congrats to Daniel Susak, by the way. Got taken by the A's in the mid-first round.
19th overall. Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool to see that. So good for him. And I think Tanner Otremba went in the 15th round of the Mets, so he won't be back next year. But it's listen, when you have a first-round pick, and Jacob Berry went like 6th, so he could have been, if he had stayed at Arizona, that would have been 2 first-round picks. I mean, Jay Johnson did a hell of a job of recruiting. Can't argue with that.
No, absolutely. He did. No, and he did great job recruiting Arizona guys to LSU too.
You said it, not me. All right. So my prediction for next week, what is going to be the crazy story? I think Arizona is going to have 1 foot out the door in the Pac-10.
You think things are going to move that quickly, huh?
I'm not saying it's going to be official, but I think the rumor mill is going to get really hot.
And you think they're going to the Big 12?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the Pac-12 ACC thing is garbage.
Well, so now, do you really think they're going to the Big 12, or do you just want that to happen?
I really think it's happening.
Okay.
And so I've kind of like convinced myself that this is the right move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, if Arizona went to the SEC, they're not going to be competitive in football. If they went to the Big 10, they're not going to be competitive.
It's a good thing they're in the Pac-12 so they could be competitive in football.
Well, yeah, but then who they play, who cares? I'd rather them go to the Big 12, and I think they're an average Big 12 team most years, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah. And I think in basketball, to see the Kansas, the Baylors, the TCU Houston matchups, even BYU. I mean, I think that's great. I'm all for it.
You know what? I would be thrilled, Eric, and I think you would be too, if we went back to the end of the Mike Stoops era when Arizona was projected to win 6 or 7 games a year. I'd be thrilled with that scenario. It's like on the low end, make a bowl game. Reasonably high end, they win 8 or 9 games, and everything goes right. Maybe they get to a New Year's 6 game, maybe once every 10 years,
once every decade. Yeah,
that scenario I would be fine with. It looks like that was where Arizona was headed under Mike Stoops and then Rich Rodriguez, and then the wheels fell off unnecessarily because Rich Rod was dismissed and Kevin Sumlin came in. But if we could get back to that scenario, even under Jed Fish of, they're projected to be a 500 team and maybe get to a bowl game, then that gives them the upside of winning more than that and maybe being competitive in the Pac-12 South or wherever they end up in the future. I'd be thrilled to get back to that place, and hopefully in a couple of years they will be.
And don't basketball would be a huge factor here, and don't rule that out. I know football is what rules the roost in terms of money. Yeah. Basketball would be a huge deal. Arizona right now would, in the Big 12 contract, I believe, is Saturdays and Mondays. And we would really enjoy watching the Cats Monday nights in, when it's, January, February. It'd be awesome. 5 or 7 o'clock starts. Be great. Want to thank our friend Scooby Wright for joining us. As always, great to talk to him. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.